A new beginning. Dr. James Lawson stood at the sink in the operating room, scrubbing his hands with a practiced precision. The sound of water splashing echoed around him, mingling with the sterile scent of antiseptic that filled the air. This was a familiar ritual, one he had performed countless times as a highly skilled pediatric surgeon, but today it felt different. Today, as he rinsed the soap from his skin, the weight of loss settled heavily on his shoulders. He dried his hands with a towel, his mind drifting to the photo framed on his desk, a picture of Emily, his late wife, smiling brightly at the camera. It had been almost a year since her sudden passing, yet the grief remained raw and unrelenting. Every interaction felt like a struggle, as if he were battling against an invisible force that weighed down his spirit. He glanced at the clock on the wall, its incessant ticking a reminder of the time slipping away, a stark contrast to the void left by Emily. "I need some air," he muttered to himself, his voice barely above a whisper. He grabbed his coat and made his way out of the hospital, hoping that a change of scenery might provide a moment of peace from the turmoil swirling inside him. The evening breeze hit his face as he stepped outside, and he breathed deeply, filling his lungs with the cool, fresh air. Without thinking, James found himself walking toward the nearby park, a place that had once brought him joy alongside Emily, filled with laughter and dreams of a family. Now, it was a reminder of what he had lost. As he wandered along the path, hands tucked deep into his pockets, he watched families enjoying their evening, children laughing and playing. Their joy felt foreign to him, a stark contrast to the heaviness in his heart. Lost in thought, he barely registered the sound of a baby's cries piercing through the air, high-pitched and desperate. The sound tugged at his instincts as a doctor. He stopped in his tracks, scanning the park for the source. The crying grew louder, pulling him closer, and he rounded a bend in the path, his heart racing. There, on a weathered wooden bench, lay a tiny bundle, a baby boy, no more than a few months old, his dark skin glistening with tears. James felt a pang of disbelief and worry as he approached the bench, the child's cries echoing in the stillness of the park. "Oh my God," James whispered, his heart aching at the sight. The baby's eyes were wide and filled with fear, his little fists clenched tight as if he were grasping onto the last threads of safety. James's heart raced as he scanned the area, searching for any sign of a parent or guardian. But the park had grown quiet. They were alone. "Hey there, little one," James said softly, crouching beside the bench, his voice gentle. "Where's your mama?" The baby's cries quieted momentarily at the sound of his voice, and James felt a stirring in his chest, a connection he couldn't quite explain. Without thinking, he reached out and gently picked up the baby. The child felt fragile in his arms, and as James cradled him against his chest, a wave of emotion washed over him. The baby snuggled closer, seeking comfort, and James felt a lump form in his throat. He had spent so long locked in grief, but here, in this moment, something began to shift inside him. The walls he had built around his heart since Emily's death started to crumble. James hurried back to his car, the warmth of the tiny body against him igniting a sense of urgency. He drove to the hospital, glancing frequently at the baby nestled in the passenger seat. His heart raced with worry and an unfamiliar warmth that spread through him like a comforting balm. Upon arriving at the hospital, he rushed through the emergency room doors, his colleagues looking up in surprise. Dr. Sarah Chen, a fellow pediatrician, approached him, concern etched on her face. "James, what's going on?" she asked, eyeing the baby in his arms. "I found him abandoned in the park," James explained, his voice tight with emotion. "He needs to be checked out." Sarah nodded, leading them to an exam room. As she began to examine the child, James hovered nearby, his eyes never leaving the baby. "He seems to be in good health," Sarah said after a thorough checkup. "No signs of neglect or abuse. He's about 3 months old, I'd say." James let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "That's good," he murmured, gently stroking the baby's cheek. The infant's skin felt soft and warm under his fingers, and for the first time in a long while, James felt a flicker of hope ignite in his heart. As the hours ticked by, no one came to claim the baby. James sat by the crib, watching the child sleep peacefully. Nurses and doctors passed by, throwing curious glances his way. It was unusual to see the typically reserved Dr. Lawson so attentive and protective. As night fell, he imagined what it would be like to take this child home, to be a father. The thought both terrified and excited him. "What do you think, little one?" he whispered to the sleeping baby. "Should we give this a try?" The baby stirred, his tiny hand reaching out instinctively. Without hesitation, James offered his finger, and the child grasped it tightly, sending a jolt of warmth through his chest. In that moment, James knew he couldn't let this child go. The next morning, James found himself sitting in the hospital cafeteria with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, his longtime friend and confidant. He cradled a cup of coffee in his hands, his mind racing with thoughts of the baby he had found. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something," James said, his voice low and serious. "What is it, James?" Sarah leaned forward, her expression shifting to concern. Taking a deep breath, he spoke. "I want to adopt the baby I found. I can't explain it, but I feel a connection to him, like he was meant to be mine." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "James, that's a big decision. Are you sure you're ready for this?" James nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I know it sounds crazy, but for the first time since Emily died, I feel hope. This child needs a home, and I need him." Sarah reached out and squeezed his hand. "I'm happy for you, James, but I have to warn you. Raising a child alone isn't easy, especially one with an unknown background. There could be health issues, developmental challenges." "I know," James interrupted gently. "But I'm a pediatric surgeon. If anyone can handle those challenges, it's me." Sarah nodded, a proud smile spreading across her face. "You're right. And you won't be alone. You'll have all of us to support you." James felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. "Thank you, Sarah. That means more than you know." As they finished their coffee, James's mind wandered back to the baby waiting in the nursery. "I've been thinking about names," he said softly. "I want to call him Juan." "Juan," Sarah repeated, her expression softening. "That's beautiful. Any special reason?" James's eyes misted with memories. It was Emily's favorite author, Juan Rulfo. She always said if we had a son, she'd want to name him Juan. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. "Oh, James, she would be so proud of you." As they stood to leave, James felt a surge of determination. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it with Juan in his life. For the first time in months, he felt the flicker of hope in his heart. Little did he know, their journey together was just beginning, and the challenges they would face would test their bond in ways he could never have imagined. The road ahead. As the sun rose the next morning, Dr. James Lawson sat at his kitchen table, the warmth of his coffee cup cradled in his hands. He gazed out the window, his mind racing with thoughts of the baby he had found. A sense of urgency coursed through him, a desire to move forward with the adoption and create a life filled with love and laughter. But doubts crept in, lurking like shadows in the corners of his mind. The house felt empty without Emily, her absence palpable in the air. Every corner held memories of their shared dreams, a future filled with children, laughter, and the mundane joys of family life. Now it felt like a reminder of what could have been. Yet, staring into the depths of his coffee, he felt something shift. The hope of building a new life filled him with purpose. The baby, Juan, represented a chance to heal, to embrace the future rather than dwell on the past. James set his coffee down and pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts until he reached the number of the adoption agency. He hesitated for a moment, steeling himself before hitting the call button. As the phone rang, he felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. What if they told him it was too late? What if they found a family for Juan? "Good morning, Hope Adoption Agency," a cheerful voice answered. "Hi, this is Dr. James Lawson. I found a baby boy in the park yesterday, and I'd like to start the adoption process." "Of course, Dr. Lawson. Can you provide a bit more information about the child?" James's heart raced as he recounted the details, the baby's age, how he had found him abandoned on the bench. The woman on the other end listened intently, her voice supportive. "We'll need to get some official documentation, and you'll have to complete a home study," she explained. "But given your circumstances, it sounds like you're in a good position to move forward." A wave of relief washed over James as they discussed the next steps. The process would be challenging, no doubt, but for the first time, he felt that he was taking control of his life. He hung up the phone feeling a sense of determination. The following days passed in a blur of meetings, paperwork, and preparations. James tackled each task with a newfound energy. He contacted social workers, gathered references, and set up a home study. His colleagues at the hospital began to notice a change in him. "James, you're smiling more," Sarah remarked one afternoon as they shared lunch in the hospital cafeteria. "I think I'm finally moving forward," he replied, excitement bubbling in his chest. Sarah raised her eyebrows. "Is that about Juan?" James nodded. "Yes. I'm starting the adoption process. It feels right, like this was meant to happen." "That's wonderful. But I do have to remind you that the road to adoption can be a bit bumpy." "I know," he said, "but I'm ready for it. I've faced challenges before. If anything, my experience as a surgeon has prepared me for this." As weeks rolled by, James found himself increasingly immersed in preparations for Juan's arrival. He transformed the spare room into a nursery, painting the walls a soft sky blue and assembling a crib adorned with colorful bedding. Each stuffed animal he placed on the shelves held a story, a dream waiting to be shared with his son. It was a labor of love, and with every stroke of paint, he could almost hear Emily's laughter echoing in the room, cheering him on. However, the weight of the upcoming home study loomed over him. He was anxious about the assessment. The thought of being scrutinized made his palms sweaty. What if they deemed him unfit to be a father? He pushed the doubts aside, reminding himself that he was committed to providing a loving home for Juan. The day of the home study arrived, and James was a bundle of nerves. He teddied every corner of the house, ensuring that everything was perfect, though he knew in his heart that love was more important than a clean kitchen. He wore a pressed shirt and slacks, trying to project confidence despite the anxiety twisting in his stomach. Mrs. Thompson, the social worker, arrived promptly at 10 o'clock, her demeanor serious but professional. She was a woman in her late 40s, with sharp features and an air of authority. James greeted her with a polite smile and led her into the living room. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Thompson," he said, his voice steady, though his heart raced. "Let's begin by discussing your motivations for adopting," she said, taking a seat on the couch, her notepad at the ready. James took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I found Juan in the park, abandoned. I felt an immediate connection with him. Since my wife passed, I've struggled with grief and loneliness. Adopting Juan gives me a chance to heal and create a family that I always dreamed of." Mrs. Thompson studied him intently. "You realize that adopting a child is not just about fulfilling a need for companionship. It's a lifelong commitment." "I do," James replied, the weight of her words resonating within him. "I'm ready for that commitment. I want to give him a loving home." They continued the discussion, covering everything from his childhood to his career, his emotional readiness, and his support system. Each question felt like a revelation, forcing James to confront his vulnerabilities. It wasn't easy, but he pressed on, determined to show her his dedication. "Do you have any concerns about adopting a child from an unknown background?" she asked, her gaze unyielding. James hesitated. "I'm aware there may be challenges, but I'm a pediatric surgeon. I understand children's health issues. I've faced adversity before, and I believe I can handle it." Mrs. Thompson nodded but didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced around the room, taking in the preparations, the nursery, the books stacked on the shelf, the photo of Emily prominently displayed on the mantel. "Your home is beautiful," she said, finally looking back at him. "But I want you to know that adopting a child, especially one with unknown origins, comes with its own set of challenges." "I understand," James said, feeling a mix of determination and anxiety. "But I won't let that deter me. I fought this through. I want to be a father to Juan, regardless of the obstacles we may face." After what felt like an eternity, Mrs. Thompson finally finished her evaluation and offered a tentative smile. "Thank you for your honesty, Dr. Lawson. I'll need some time to finalize my report, but I can tell you care deeply about this child." "Thank you," James replied, feeling a surge of relief. As Mrs. Thompson left, James felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The next few days dragged on as he awaited her decision. He filled his time with work and dreams of the future. The hospital became a sanctuary, allowing him to escape the uncertainties of his personal life. Yet, with every passing moment, his thoughts drifted back to Juan. What would he look like? What would his first laugh sound like? James found himself daydreaming about the little moments that would fill their lives together. Then came the call he had been waiting for. "Dr. Lawson, it's Mrs. Thompson from the adoption agency." Her voice crackled through the line, pulling him from his thoughts. "I have good news." His heart raced. "What is it?" "After reviewing your home study and speaking with your references, I'm happy to inform you that you have been approved to adopt Juan." James let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Really? Thank you. Thank you so much." "You're welcome. But remember, this is just the beginning. The legal process can be lengthy, but I believe Juan will thrive in your care." "I won't let you down," he promised, excitement bubbling within him. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparations. The legalities of adoption moved slowly, but James remained steadfast in his commitment. He started reading parenting books, attending workshops, and gathering supplies for Juan. He found himself immersed in the world of child rearing, learning everything he could about infant care. As he navigated this new journey, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and connection to life. James found joy in the simplest tasks: bottle feeding practice with a stuffed animal, setting up a baby monitor, and even learning how to swaddle a blanket. Each task brought him closer to Juan, to the family he was about to build. But amid the excitement, doubts lingered in the back of his mind. What if he wasn't enough? What if he failed as a parent? As he lay in bed at night, these thoughts plagued him, but he pushed them aside. Juan needed him, and he was determined to be the father the boy deserved. One afternoon, after a particularly long day at the hospital, James sat in the nursery, rocking back and forth in the chair he had picked out. He closed his eyes, imagining Juan sleeping peacefully in his arms. He envisioned teaching him to ride a bike, helping him with homework, and sharing stories about Emily, ensuring her memory lived on through their lives. Suddenly, a knock on the door broke his reverie. It was Sarah, her face alight with enthusiasm. "Hey, I brought you something," she said, holding a small bag filled with toys and clothes. "Sarah, you didn't have to do that," James said, rising from the chair. "Nonsense. I'm so excited for you. I thought these might come in handy for Juan," she said, dumping the contents onto the nursery floor. James chuckled, watching as she pulled out an assortment of colorful toys, rattles, and even a soft, plush dinosaur. "Thank you. It means a lot." Sarah sat on the floor, playing with the toys, and James joined her. For a moment, they laughed and shared stories, reminiscing about their time in medical school and their dreams of starting families. As they laughed, James felt the weight on his heart begin to lift. "You know, you're going to be a great dad," Sarah said, looking up at him with sincerity. "Juan is lucky to have you." "I hope so," James replied, his voice softening. I want to give him everything: love, support, and a sense of belonging." "And you will," Sarah assured him. "You've got a whole team of people who will support you through this. You're not alone in this journey, James." As they sat in the nursery, surrounded by toys and dreams, James felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, but he was ready to face them head-on. With each passing day, he grew more excited about becoming a father, envisioning the beautiful moments that awaited him and Juan. He felt alive again, ready to embrace the future and the love that would fill their lives. Little did he know, the journey of fatherhood would test him in ways he could never have imagined, but he was prepared to rise to the occasion for the sake of the child who had captured his heart. The new normal. As the days turned into weeks, James found himself caught in a whirlwind of activity. The nursery, once just a spare room, now felt alive with the promise of new beginnings. The vibrant toys, cheerful colors, and soft bedding painted a picture of hope and love, a stark contrast to the grief that had shadowed his life for too long. His excitement intensified as the date of Juan's arrival approached. James read everything he could about parenting, immersing himself in the intricacies of infant care. He practiced diaper changes on stuffed animals, followed online tutorials on bathing babies, and even experimented with bottle feeding using a doll he had named Mr. Snuggles. Each moment brought him closer to the reality of fatherhood. The legal process for adoption, however, was proving to be a slow and complex journey. Each week brought more paperwork, meetings with social workers, and phone calls with lawyers. The anticipation was exhilarating yet exhausting. Every time he received a call from the agency, his heart raced with hope and anxiety. "Dr. Lawson, we're still processing the final paperwork," Mrs. Thompson reassured him during one of their weekly updates. "I know the waiting can be difficult, but rest assured, we're doing everything we can." "I understand," James replied, trying to mask his frustration. "I just want to bring Juan home." "It'll happen soon, I promise," she assured him. "In the meantime, focus on preparing your home and your heart for this new journey." With each passing day, the desire to hold Juan grew stronger. James found himself daydreaming during surgeries, envisioning the little boy's laughter filling the hallways of his home. He could picture reading bedtime stories, teaching him how to ride a bike, and introducing him to the joys of life. On a particularly sunny Saturday morning, James decided to take a break from the whirlwind of preparations. He went for a walk in the nearby park, the fresh air invigorating. The vibrant colors of autumn surrounded him as leaves crunched beneath his feet. Families strolled by, children playing, laughter echoing in the air, a stark reminder of the life he yearned to build. Sitting on a bench, he watched a young father toss a ball with his son, the child's squeals of delight filling the space between them. A pang of longing struck James. He imagined Juan, small and bright-eyed, chasing after the ball, his laughter harmonizing with the world around him. Suddenly, a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" James looked up to see a woman standing there, her brown hair cascading over her shoulders, her smile warm and inviting. She looked to be in her early 30s, her eyes sparkling with kindness. "No, please, have a seat," he replied, gesturing to the empty spot beside him. "Thanks," she said, settling in. "I'm Emma. I come here often with my son. He loves the swings." "Nice to meet you, Emma. I'm James. I'm just taking a break from life, I guess." He chuckled, feeling a bit vulnerable. "I get that," she said, glancing at the families around them. "It's a beautiful day to step back and enjoy the moment." They exchanged small talk, sharing bits about their lives. Emma spoke of her son, Sam, who was 5 and full of energy, always bouncing off the walls. She mentioned the challenges of parenting and the joy that came with it. "I can't imagine what it's like to raise a child alone," James confessed, his heart heavy with his own circumstances. Emma nodded, her expression sympathetic. "It's tough, but the love makes it all worthwhile." "Are you a parent?" James hesitated, unsure how to explain his situation. "I'm in the process of adopting a baby boy," he said, pride swelling in his chest. "That's wonderful," Emma exclaimed. "Congratulations. What's his name?" "Juan," he replied, a smile spreading across his face. "I can't wait to bring him home." Emma's eyes brightened. "You must be so excited. It's a life-changing experience." "It is," James said, feeling the weight of her encouragement lift his spirits. "But there's a lot of waiting involved. I just want to hold him and show him how much he's loved." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, the connection between them growing deeper. James found comfort in sharing his hopes and fears with someone who understood the nuances of parenting. They exchanged phone numbers, and Emma invited him to join a local parenting group she attended. Having a support system is invaluable, especially as a single parent, she emphasized. It's nice to share experiences and get advice from others who are going through similar situations. James felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. Maybe this was exactly what he needed, a community to help guide him through this new chapter of his life. As the days turned into weeks, James found himself attending the parenting group Emma had suggested. The group met every Thursday evening at a cozy cafe, where parents shared stories, experiences, and advice over cups of steaming coffee. At first, he felt like an outsider, a lone wolf among seasoned parents, each one with their unique challenges and triumphs. But as he opened up about his journey, the others welcomed him with open arms, sharing their own struggles and victories. "You're going to be a fantastic dad, James," one mother, Lisa, assured him. "You've got the heart and the determination. It's all about love and patience," another father, Mark, added. "You'll learn as you go." Each week, James left the group feeling uplifted and inspired. He absorbed their wisdom and began to understand that parenting was a journey of learning, filled with both challenges and beautiful moments. He looked forward to sharing stories about Juan, picturing the day he would finally introduce his son to this new world. The day arrived when he received the call that Juan's adoption was finalized. James felt as though the universe had aligned, the stars shining brightly to illuminate his path. He rushed to the agency, his heart racing with anticipation. "Congratulations, Dr. Lawson. You're officially Juan's father." Mrs. Thompson beamed, handing him the legal documents. James could hardly believe it. The moment felt surreal, yet profound. He felt a surge of joy mixed with nervousness. He was finally a father. The dreams he had nurtured were now a reality, and his heart swelled with love for the tiny human he was about to bring home. With the paperwork complete, he hurried to the hospital to meet Juan. As he entered the nursery, he was greeted by the sight of a small bassinet, the soft sound of a baby's coos filling the air. There, swaddled in a soft blanket, was Juan, tiny, with a tuft of dark hair and wide, curious eyes that sparkled with innocence. James's heart soared at the sight of him, a wave of love crashing over him. He approached the bassinet, his heart racing, the weight of the moment palpable. "Hey there, little guy," he murmured, his voice filled with tenderness. "I'm your dad." Juan looked up at him, seemingly studying his face, and in that instant, James felt an unbreakable bond forming. He reached down, gently lifting Juan into his arms. The baby fit perfectly against his chest, a warmth spreading through him. "This is it," James whispered, holding Juan close. "You and me against the world." The journey home was surreal. James drove cautiously, each bump in the road making him acutely aware of the fragile life he cradled in his arms. His heart raced with anticipation and trepidation, but the joy of bringing Juan home overshadowed his fears. As they entered the house, James was overwhelmed by a sense of purpose. The nursery welcomed them with open arms, a space that now felt alive with potential. He settled Juan into the crib, watching as the baby's eyelids fluttered close. With each passing moment, the reality of fatherhood sank in. James felt a mix of joy and anxiety, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within him. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, but now that it was here, he found himself grappling with uncertainty. What if I mess this up? He whispered to himself, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Yet, as he sat beside the crib, watching Juan sleep, he realized that this was a journey he didn't have to navigate alone. The parenting group, his friends, and even Emma had all become a part of his support system. He had a community that would help him learn, grow, and navigate the challenges of parenthood. In the days that followed, James settled into a routine with Juan. The early mornings were filled with feeding sessions, diaper changes, and the sweet scent of baby lotion. Each day brought new challenges and joys, but James met them with determination and love. One evening, as he sat in the nursery rocking Juan to sleep, he marveled at the beauty of the moment. The quiet hum of the house surrounded them, and he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He softly sang a lullaby, his voice a gentle whisper as he cradled his son against his chest. "Just you wait, Juan," he said, his heart swelling with affection. "We're going to have so many adventures together. I promise to be the father you deserve." As the days turned into weeks and then months, James embraced the challenges and joys of fatherhood. He learned to navigate sleepless nights, the art of soothing a crying baby, and the beauty of witnessing Juan's first smile. Each milestone was a victory, and he celebrated them with fervor. James's bond with Juan deepened with every passing day. They spent countless hours reading books, playing with toys, and exploring the world around them. The nursery transformed into a haven of laughter, love, and cherished memories. Through the ups and downs, James discovered that parenting was a journey of growth for both him and Juan. He learned to embrace the messiness of life, finding joy in the unexpected moments that came their way. With each challenge, he grew more confident, determined to provide Juan with a loving, nurturing environment. Little did he know that this journey of fatherhood would lead him to unexpected places, introducing him to new friendships and deepening the connections in his life. As James held Juan in his arms, he felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them together, ready to face whatever the future held, side by side. Embracing change. As the leaves turned from green to a fiery palette of reds, oranges, and yellows, James found himself enveloped in the beauty of autumn. Each day felt like a new beginning, a fresh opportunity to bond with Juan and embrace the joys of fatherhood. Their home, once filled with echoes of silence and longing, now pulsed with laughter, warmth, and the gentle coos of a growing baby. James had settled into a routine that felt natural, though not without its challenges. He had become a master at juggling his demanding medical career with the intricacies of parenting. Mornings began with the soft light of dawn spilling into the nursery, illuminating the peaceful face of his sleeping son. James would start his day with a ritual of quiet reflection, sitting in the rocking chair, savoring the calm before the whirlwind of the day began. He would gently lift Juan from his crib, his heart swelling as he gazed into the baby's bright, curious eyes. "Good morning, my little adventure," he would say, planting a soft kiss on Juan's forehead. The joy of being a father, coupled with the weight of responsibility, filled James with a sense of purpose he had never known before. However, with this new joy came moments of doubt and uncertainty. One evening, while bathing Juan in the dim light of the bathroom, James's heart raced. As he carefully washed the tiny body, he couldn't help but think about the world awaiting his son outside those four walls. What challenges would Juan face? How would he navigate life as a black child in a world still grappling with issues of race and inequality? "Hey there, buddy," James murmured, gently pouring warm water over Juan's head. "I promise to do my best to protect you from the world. But you've got to be brave too." He spoke to Juan as if the baby could understand, hoping his words would somehow instill strength in him. These reflections often haunted James in the quiet moments, and he found himself reaching out to Emma more frequently. Their friendship had blossomed into a genuine bond, rooted in shared experiences and mutual support. Emma had a warmth about her, and her own journey as a single mother provided a wealth of wisdom that James found invaluable. One crisp afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the park, James met Emma and Sam for a playdate. Juan was now a curious 6-month-old, sitting up on his own and reaching for everything within arm's reach. As they settled on a blanket under a sprawling oak tree, James watched with amusement as Sam ran circles around Juan, laughing and playing with abandon. "Look at them," Emma exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "It's like they've known each other forever." James chuckled. "They're definitely best buds in the making." As the children played, Emma shared her own experiences navigating the complexities of parenting. "It's not easy, you know. There are days when I feel like I'm doing everything wrong," she admitted, her expression turning serious. "But then I remind myself that I'm doing my best." "I get that," James replied, running a hand through his hair. "Some days I feel overwhelmed by the responsibility. What if I don't teach him the right things? What if I can't protect him from the world?" Emma placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "You're already doing so much for him. Just being there for him, showing him love and support, is what truly matters. It's okay to feel uncertain. We're all just trying to figure it out as we go along." Her words resonated with James, soothing the fears that gnawed at him. He realized that parenting was not about perfection, but about connection, love, and growth. Each moment spent with Juan was a step toward creating a foundation built on trust and understanding. As the months rolled by, James became increasingly aware of the challenges that lay ahead. He often reflected on his own upbringing, the privileges he had experienced, and the hurdles he had not faced. He knew that as Juan grew, he would encounter biases and judgments based on the color of his skin, and it was up to James to prepare him for those realities. One evening, as he tucked Juan into bed, he whispered softly, "I promise to teach you about the world and help you find your place in it. You'll always have a home in my heart." James felt a wave of determination wash over him. He would make sure Juan understood his identity and the beauty of his heritage, equipping him with the tools to navigate the complexities of life. With this newfound resolve, James sought out resources to educate himself further. He dove into books and articles about race, parenting, and the experiences of Black families. He attended community meetings focused on raising awareness about social issues and listened to the voices of those who had walked similar paths. During one such meeting, he met Marcus, a local activist and father, who shared powerful stories about his own experiences raising a son in a world filled with both opportunity and prejudice. James found himself drawn to Marcus's passion and insights, and they quickly struck up a friendship. Over coffee one afternoon, they exchanged thoughts on the importance of representation and understanding in parenting. "You've got to teach him about his history," Marcus said, leaning forward with intensity. "Help him see the beauty in his heritage, and equip him with the knowledge to stand up for himself when it matters." "I plan to," James replied, feeling inspired. "I want Juan to be proud of who he is. I want him to know that he's capable of anything." Their conversations opened James's eyes to new perspectives and resources he hadn't previously considered. He began attending workshops on racial awareness, finding community among others who shared similar goals of raising socially conscious children. As the seasons changed and the first snowfall of winter blanketed the ground, James and Juan settled into their new routine. With the holidays approaching, James felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This would be Juan's first Christmas, and he wanted to create magical memories for them both. He spent weeks decorating the house, adorning it with twinkling lights and a festive tree, carefully selecting ornaments that reflected their journey. He even made an effort to incorporate elements of both their backgrounds, choosing ornaments that represented not only traditional Christmas themes, but also cultural symbols that honored Juan's heritage. On Christmas Eve, as the sun dipped below the horizon, James lit candles and played soft holiday music in the background. He cradled Juan in his arms, watching as the baby's eyes widened in wonder at the lights. "Look, buddy," "It's our first Christmas together," James said, his voice full of emotion. "I can't wait to show you how magical this season can be." That night, as James tucked Juan into his crib, he felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. The path they had traveled together had been filled with challenges, but each step had brought them closer, shaping their bond in ways he had never anticipated. In the following weeks, they celebrated with friends and family, creating a tapestry of memories woven together with laughter, love, and joy. James cherished every moment, capturing them in photos and journal entries, wanting to remember these fleeting early days forever. As January rolled in, James found himself reflecting on the journey ahead. He had faced fears, formed friendships, and discovered new strengths as a father. He felt a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to raising Juan to be a compassionate, confident, and empowered young man. One sunny afternoon, while pushing Juan in a stroller through the park, he spotted a group of children playing in the distance. They were laughing and running freely, their joyful energy palpable. James felt a surge of excitement at the thought of Juan growing up surrounded by friends, embracing life with open arms. He pictured the day when Juan would take his first steps, chase after a ball, or ride a bike. James envisioned himself cheering from the sidelines, proud and filled with love. "Just you wait, Juan," he said, glancing down at his son, who was happily cooing and reaching for the world around him. "We're going to make beautiful memories together." In that moment, James understood that parenting was not just about protection or preparation. It was about creating a space where Juan could thrive, explore, and discover who he was meant to be. As he pushed the stroller forward, a new chapter unfolded before them, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of a beautiful future together. With each passing day, James felt the weight of his fears lift, replaced by a deep-seated belief in their bond and the journey ahead. He was ready to embrace the challenges and triumphs, hand in hand with Juan, forging a path filled with love, resilience, and hope. Unforeseen challenges. Spring arrived in a flurry of blossoms, filling the air with a sweet fragrance that signaled new beginnings. As James watched the world awaken around him, he felt invigorated. The days grew longer, and each one brought new adventures with Juan, whose laughter echoed like music in their home. Every moment spent together, every diaper change, every bedtime story, and every smile, woven into the fabric of their lives, created a bond stronger than James had ever imagined. With Juan now a curious toddler, James found himself immersed in the joys of discovery. The boy's inquisitive nature sparked countless adventures. They explored the local zoo, marveling at the vibrant animals. They wandered through the park, collecting leaves and rocks, and they filled their home with art made from finger paints and crayons. Each day was a new opportunity to learn and grow together. However, as Juan flourished, the world outside their bubble of happiness proved more complex than James had anticipated. One sunny afternoon, they attended a local community event at the park, a celebration of culture and diversity. Families gathered, showcasing their heritage through food, music, and art. James felt a wave of excitement as he joined the festivities, eager to expose Juan to the richness of different cultures. But as they walked among the booths, James noticed a shift in the atmosphere. He could feel eyes on them, curious, judgmental, and sometimes hostile. A group of mothers nearby exchanged whispers, casting wary glances in their direction. The air thickened with unspoken words, and James's stomach tightened as he realized the implications of being a white father raising a black child in a society still grappling with racial tensions. He held Juan close, trying to shield him from the judgmental stares that made his skin crawl. But he knew he couldn't protect him from everything. He felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. What will he think when he's older? He wondered. Will he feel different? Will he face prejudice because of me? Later that evening, as he tucked Juan into bed, James couldn't shake the unease that had crept into his heart. He sat on the edge of the crib, running a hand through his hair, troubled by the thought of the world outside their sanctuary. "I have to prepare him for this," he whispered, glancing down at the peaceful face of his son. "I have to teach him to be proud of who he is, no matter what others say." As the weeks went by, the insecurities that had begun to take root began to sprout into doubts. James spent sleepless nights researching racial identity and cultural sensitivity. He found himself poring over articles written by experts, seeking guidance on how to raise Juan in a world that might not always accept him. He wanted to ensure that Juan grew up confident in his identity and resilient against any potential biases. James reached out to Marcus for advice, knowing he could benefit from his experience. They met at a local cafe, the aroma of coffee swirling around them as they settled into their chairs. "I'm worried, Marcus," James confessed, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "I want to raise Juan to be proud of who he is, but I fear I'm not equipped for the challenges he may face." Marcus leaned back, thoughtful. "It's natural to feel that way, James. It's good that you're aware of these issues, but don't forget that you're already doing a great job by simply being present in Juan's life. You love him, and that love is the foundation he needs." James nodded, taking in Marcus's words. "I know I can't shield him from everything, but how do I teach him to navigate the world when it can be so cruel?" "Start with honesty," Marcus advised. "When Juan is old enough, have those conversations about race and identity. Let him know that it's okay to talk about being different and that he should be proud of his heritage. Find books that represent his experience and surround him with a community that embraces diversity." Inspired by Marcus's guidance, James dove into creating an environment that celebrated Juan's identity. He began visiting the local library, seeking out stories that featured Black protagonists and showcased diverse experiences. He wanted to fill their home with representations that would help Juan feel connected to his culture. The more he read, the more empowered he felt. He discovered authors like Jacqueline Woodson and Chris Paul, whose work spoke directly to the experiences he wanted to help Juan understand. As they read together, James found joy in watching Juan's eyes light up at the colorful illustrations and captivating narratives. However, just as James began to feel a sense of control, life threw another unexpected curveball his way. One ordinary Tuesday morning, as he prepared to leave for work, his phone buzzed with a message from his social worker, Mrs. Thompson. Her name alone was enough to send a pang of anxiety through him, recalling the tumultuous journey they had faced during the adoption process. "James, I need to discuss something important regarding Juan's case. Please call me when you can." His heart raced as he dialed her number. "Mrs. Thompson, it's James. Thank you for calling back so quickly," she said, her voice steady yet serious. "I wanted to inform you that we've received a call from a man claiming to be Juan's biological father. He wishes to discuss his parental rights." Time seemed to stand still. James felt the world around him fade as her words sunk in. "What?" But he was abandoned. "He has no rights." "Legally, that's true," she replied. "However, there's a possibility that he might contest the adoption. I wanted to give you a heads up about it. This could complicate things." James's mind spun. He had fought so hard to build a life for Juan, and now everything felt precarious. "What does this mean for Juan? Will he be taken away from me?" "Not immediately," Mrs. Thompson assured him, "but you should prepare for potential challenges ahead. I recommend consulting with a family law attorney who specializes in adoption cases." The reality of the situation crashed over him like a wave. In the midst of his joyous journey of fatherhood, the specter of uncertainty loomed large. Could he lose everything he had worked so hard to create? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Each moment felt heavier, filled with the weight of the unknown. When he arrived home that evening, he found himself standing in the nursery, staring at the half-assembled toys and crayon drawings. It was the life he had built for Juan, a sanctuary of love and security. As he watched Juan play, his heart ached. "What if I lose you?" he whispered, fighting back tears. "What if someone takes you away?" With every passing day, the anxiety grew, casting a shadow over the joy they had found together. James met with lawyers, navigating the complexities of the legal system while desperately trying to hold on to hope. He pored over documents, attending hearings and discussions about custody and parental rights, grappling with the unknown. Through it all, Marcus remained a steadfast source of support. He offered encouragement, reminding James of the bond he had with Juan, which could never be undermined by mere paperwork. "You are his father in every sense of the word," he would say. "That love will carry you through this." But the uncertainty hung over James like a dark cloud, and he struggled to maintain a facade of normalcy. Some days, he felt a fierce determination to fight for Juan, while other days, despair threatened to engulf him. One evening, as they snuggled together on the couch, reading a book about a brave little turtle who found his way home, Juan's laughter broke through the weight of James's worries. His laughter was a reminder of the innocence and joy they had cultivated, a flicker of light amid the darkness. With each hug and smile, James realized that while the challenges ahead were daunting, his love for Juan would be the anchor that kept him grounded. "We'll figure this out, buddy," he said softly, holding Juan close. "I won't let anyone take you away from me." Determined to prepare for whatever came next, James began to document their journey together. He filled journals with memories, hopes, and dreams for Juan's future. He wrote about the laughter they shared, the lessons they learned, and the love that blossomed within their home. He wanted Juan to have a piece of his heart, a testament to their bond that could never be severed. As the legal proceedings unfolded, James faced the challenges head-on. He knew he would need to be strong for Juan, showing him the resilience that had defined his journey thus far. And as the leaves began to bud and the flowers bloomed, he held on to hope. Hope for their future together, hope for love, and hope for the bond that would guide them through the storm. Together, they would face whatever the world threw their way, hand in hand, father and son, united by an unbreakable love. The power of love. As summer approached, the air filled with the warmth of sunlight and the sound of laughter, but the impending legal battle weighed heavily on James's heart. Juan's biological father had made his presence known, stirring up feelings of anxiety and uncertainty in James. He had spent countless nights tossing and turning, grappling with the fear of losing the boy who had become his entire world. Despite the turmoil, James made a conscious effort to shield Juan from the complexities of adult worries. He focused on creating joyful moments, filling their days with fun activities and adventures that would solidify the bond they had formed. They explored the local parks, went on nature walks, and visited the community pool, where Juan delighted in splashing around with other children. Every smile from Juan reminded James of the purity and joy that life could hold. One Saturday, James decided to take Juan to a nearby fair that had come to town. The vibrant colors and lively music beckoned families from all over, and James hoped this day would distract him from the looming stress. They spent the afternoon bouncing on inflatable castles, sampling cotton candy, and playing games. The joy in Juan's laughter rang through the air, reminding James of how far they had come together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, James decided to take Juan on the Ferris wheel. It was a small but significant decision, one that promised a moment of magic high above the fairgrounds. They climbed into their compartment, and as the wheel began to turn, James felt a sense of exhilaration wash over him. "Look, Juan," James pointed at the view below. "You can see everything from up here." Juan's eyes widened in wonder as they reached the top. "Wow, Daddy, it's so big." His voice echoed with joy. James couldn't help but smile. "Just like you," he said, ruffling Juan's hair. At that moment, all his worries seemed to fade away, replaced by the warmth of love that enveloped them both. As they descended, the thrill of the ride filled James with a sense of gratitude. No matter what challenges lay ahead, he had Juan by his side. He resolved to face any storm that came their way, fueled by the strength of their love. Later that night, as Juan snuggled into bed, James read him a story about a brave little lion who fought against the odds to protect his family. The tale resonated with James, and he felt a sense of purpose as he turned the pages, imparting the lessons of courage and resilience. "Do you think I can be brave like the lion?" Juan asked, his eyes heavy with sleep. James leaned down, planting a gentle kiss on his forehead. "You already are, buddy. You are the bravest little boy I know." As Juan drifted off to sleep, James remained in the nursery, his heart full of love and hope. Yet in the quiet moments, the nagging fear of losing Juan crept back in. He knew that the court hearing was fast approaching, and the uncertainty loomed over him like a dark cloud. He needed to prepare, to ensure that he could fight for the child who had captured his heart. The following week, James met with his attorney, a kind and experienced woman named Angela. They gathered in her office, surrounded by stacks of legal papers and family photos. "James, we need to discuss the upcoming hearing," Angela said, her tone serious yet reassuring. "It's essential that we present a strong case for Juan's best interests." James nodded, swallowing hard. "I just want to keep him safe, Angela. He deserves a loving home." "Absolutely," she affirmed, leaning forward. "Your relationship with Juan is a vital aspect of this case. We need to showcase the love, stability, and support you provide him. I want you to gather any documentation that illustrates your bond, such as photos, journals, or letters you've written to him." Determined, James set out to create a portfolio that would illustrate the life he had built with Juan. Over the next few days, he scoured through their many photographs, selecting snapshots that encapsulated their adventures together. He printed pictures of their first day at the zoo, their moments in the park, and quiet evenings spent reading together on the couch. Each image told a story, a narrative of love, growth, and connection. In addition to the photos, James decided to write letters to Juan, detailing their journey together. He poured his heart into each letter, expressing his dreams for Juan, the lessons he hoped to impart, and the love that had grown between them. He described how Juan had brought light back into his life after the darkness of losing Emily. These letters became a testament to his commitment as a father, a declaration of love that would transcend any courtroom. When the day of the hearing arrived, James felt a mix of determination and trepidation. The courtroom was intimidating, its walls lined with solemn decorum and the weight of legal precedents. As he entered, his heart raced, and he found himself clutching the portfolio tightly, reminding himself of the love and strength he had built with Juan. Angela stood beside him, her presence a reassuring anchor. "Remember, James, the most important thing is to show the court how much Juan means to you. Speak from your heart." As the proceedings began, the judge entered, and the room fell silent. James felt his stomach churn as he took his seat, glancing at the empty chair across from him, the seat where Juan's biological father would sit. He had no idea who this man was or what he wanted, but James felt a protective instinct rise within him. After preliminary introductions, the judge called James to the stand. With a deep breath, he stood and walked forward, feeling the eyes of the courtroom on him. He steadied himself, recalling the warmth of Juan's laughter and the bond they shared. "Dr. Lawson," the judge began, "please explain your relationship with the child in question." James looked directly at the judge, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "Your Honor, Juan is my son. I found him abandoned in the park, and from the moment I held him, I felt a connection that I cannot describe. I have dedicated myself to providing him with a loving home and a stable environment." As he spoke, James shared anecdotes from their life together. The joy of watching Juan learn to walk, the comfort of bedtime stories, and the laughter that filled their home. He could see the judge's attention, the interest in the courtroom as he recounted their adventures. "Your Honor, I understand that Juan has a biological father, but I am the one who has raised him, cared for him, and loved him every day since he came into my life. I want nothing more than to give him the family he deserves." As James concluded, he glanced back at Angela, who gave him an encouraging nod. He had bared his soul, exposing the vulnerability of a father's love. But as he returned to his seat, he noticed the tension in the room shift when Juan's biological father finally entered the courtroom. The man was tall and imposing, a stark contrast to the delicate nature of Juan's childhood. He wore a well-fitted suit, his expression unreadable. James felt a surge of protectiveness for Juan, who was not in attendance, safe at home, unaware of the storm brewing around him. The biological father was called to the stand, and as he spoke, James listened closely, noting the man's guarded demeanor and fragmented story. He claimed that he had been searching for his son, trying to reunite with him after facing his own struggles. But the words felt hollow to James, who had fought tirelessly to create a loving home for Juan. As the questioning continued, the man spoke of his regrets, but failed to acknowledge the significance of the bond James and Juan had built. James could feel the frustration rising within him. This man had abandoned Juan, yet he was now attempting to claim a role that had been filled by James from day one. When the judge turned to James for rebuttal, James took a deep breath. "Your Honor, while I understand that this man is Juan's biological father, I am the one who has been there for him every step of the way. I have loved him, cared for him, and dedicated my life to his well-being. My connection to Juan is unbreakable." The courtroom fell silent, and the weight of James's words hung in the air. He could see the judge taking notes, the seriousness of the situation palpable. He hoped that his dedication and love would shine through the tension of the proceedings. After several more hours of testimony and cross-examination, the judge called for a recess. James stepped out of the courtroom, his heart racing. The uncertainty lingered, but he felt determined to fight for his son. He was not just a man in a suit. He was a father, and he would do everything in his power to protect Juan. As they returned to the courtroom after the break, the atmosphere shifted again. James watched as the judge considered the evidence, the testimonies, and the emotional weight of the case. Finally, the judge called for the final statements. In those moments, James realized that he had to express not only the facts but the emotions tied to their journey. He stood once more, and his voice resonated through the silence of the courtroom. "Your Honor, I stand here not just as a man who adopted a child, but as a father who loves his son deeply. Juan is my joy, my laughter, and my reason to wake up every day with purpose. I want to provide him with a life full of love and support, a life where he knows he is valued and cherished. My greatest hope is that he grows up knowing his worth and embracing his identity." With tears brimming in his eyes, he continued, "I promise to raise him in a home filled with love, understanding, and acceptance. I want to be the father he deserves, and I will fight for him, no matter the odds." As James stepped down from the stand, he felt a sense of release. He had spoken from his heart, and he hoped it would resonate with the judge. Finally, the time came for the judge to deliver the ruling. The courtroom was tense with anticipation. As the judge began to speak, James held his breath, praying that the bond he had built with Juan would shine through. After considering all the evidence presented, the testimony, and the best interests of the child, I find that James Lawson has established a loving and stable environment for Juan. While biological ties are significant, it is clear that the emotional bond between James and Juan is profound. Therefore, I am granting full custody to James Lawson. A wave of relief washed over James as he processed the judge's words. He felt the burden lift from his shoulders, replaced by overwhelming gratitude. The courtroom erupted in a murmur of conversation, but James could only hear the thumping of his own heart and the rush of emotions surging within him. He turned to Angela, who was smiling with pride. "You did it, James. Juan is yours." As James left the courtroom, the world outside felt brighter and lighter. He could barely contain his joy as he envisioned the moment he would hold Juan in his arms, whispering the good news that they were together for good. When he arrived home, he found Juan playing with his toys, a picture of innocence and joy. As James stepped through the door, Juan looked up, his face lighting up with a smile that melted James's heart. "Daddy," he exclaimed, running toward him. James knelt down, enveloping Juan in a tight embrace. "Hey there, buddy. I have some incredible news to share." "Did you win the game?" Juan asked, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. James chuckled, wiping a tear from his eye. "Better than that. I won the biggest prize of all. You get to stay with me forever." Juan's eyes widened, and he grinned from ear to ear. "Yay. Forever." He clung to James, and in that moment, everything felt right in the world. James held him close, feeling the warmth of their connection radiate through him. In that embrace, he understood that love was the greatest prize of all, and no challenge could ever sever the bond they had built together. With renewed strength and determination, James knew that he would continue to nurture Juan's identity, teach him about the world, and protect him at all costs. Together, they would forge a path filled with love, resilience, and hope, ready to face whatever came their way. As they settled into their evening routine, reading stories and sharing laughter, James felt a profound sense of gratitude. They were a family, forged through love, and nothing would ever change that.